I got this thing all thread back together, and I'm actually reshooting this little video segment because I'm trying to jam a lot of information into it. So here we go. I was going to tell you what I do like about it. Number one, they gave me a new one outside of the warranty period. That's pretty cool. Um, Two, I do kind of like the smart sensor technology where it allows the pump to run either slow or fast depending on how much water you're using. And I was always a fan of that. I thought that was kind of neat. My last pump was also of the same style, and so was the pump before that. There were three separate pumps. I think this is the nicest of those pumps. It's really solid construction. Um, I was a little disappointed to see those gears weren't made out of stainless steel. I thought they were, but I think they look like they're plastic. I'll have to maybe double check on that. I don't like the fact that this strainer, well, I do like the design of the strainer. I think it's kind of cool that they made it round like that, so wherever it locks on the threads, you don't, like the old one, they might, the strainer might not have lined up next to the pump very well, depending on where the thread's seated. And no problems there with this strainer. But, I do wonder, if you drop a wrench on it, it could break, and then you have water rushing down into your bilge. So if I could change something, I'd put a metal strainer on there, which I know is more expensive. And they do sell them separately, probably a good 50 or $100. So that'd be one upgrade. I'll point out, too, I think this is in the $300 range. It's a couple years since I bought it. Um, I think for that amount of money, it's fair. And I'll point out that an expensive water pump can cost you like $2,000. One that would be shaft drive, where you have like the motor, a shaft, and then the pump is separate pieces, and then you probably have a separate pressure sensor. But one thing I'll tell you, and my intention with that other pump, the Japsko one, if I end up using it, which a friend today was telling me about these old pumps that have an actual like a propeller in there that's made out of bronze, and it'd be nice if it was all either bronze or copper touching the water. But anyway, that pump that I was showing you the other day, the Japsko one, if I were to drive that pump, or when I do rig it up to some kind of motor, I'll use a pressure switch that just simply turns the pump on and off, so it's not any type of intelligence, and it does not have like a data cable coming off of it, which, I'll say that is kind of cool. But do you really need a data cable on your water pump? Who knows? It'd be kind of cool to see how often you use it, I suppose. Anyhow, I was going to tell you, I think the more reliable way to use these, to go with the water pump, is to do this style that just simply turns it on and off. Because the switch is just a lot less prone to break, I would think. Anyway, all the comments for the moment. Quite yet. I was going to point out, when you do use the type of switch that just turns the pump on and off, you have to put it's called a buffer kind of thing, where you have a tank that has a spring and a baffle in it, and it makes it so that when you turn the pump on, you have to first pressurize and put water into that baffle before the pump turns off. In this way, it does not make the pump turn on and off really abruptly or chatter just by turning on and off. Perhaps if you're using too low of a stream of water, where the pump it's not able to really, since it's either on or off. If it's just on and you're only using a tiny bit of water, you could see how it would chatter. So the baffle will take care of that, or the buffer will take care of that. But with the buffer, then you have this other buffer tank next to the pump, so it does take up a lot more space. And I didn't want to sacrifice the space for one of those tanks, so that's one of the reasons I went with the smart sensor. So a lot of considerations on these types of pumps, and I guess it'll be good to have a backup, and maybe I'll use this primarily, and then I'll just have the other ones as a backup. Who knows what the plan will be on that? I'll keep you posted. I just cannot get this video right, or something. I had those fittings switched around, so now I have the strainer on the correct side, the pressurized side. Just had to point that out. Definitely not going to reshoot that whole video just to fix that one error. While I'm down here today, I'm going to clean up these wires a little bit, just snip them off, and then put on some new connectors with some shrink tape, or shrink wrap stuff. And I don't know if I have any of that goop you put in there too, but we'll see. As far as the shrink wrap goes, I like this Harbor Freight stuff. It was highly recommended by a buddy of mine. And if I'm not mistaken, they also sell these rolls of shrink wrap there too, and these are really nice in case you need to do some serious shrink wrapping. Located my dielectric grease, which, if I'm not mistaken, it like conducts and doesn't conduct at the same time. Kind of like how a politician will say something and not say it in the same sentence at the same time. It's kind of this type of Roman double talk types of stuffs. I'm going to use some of these connectors, but I have several of these male end ones, but I need some of the female ones. I don't really feel like going to the store right now, so I'll probably just twist the wires together for the moment. But I'll yeah, I'll probably I need to have it installed so I have some water pressure in here, because I'll tell you, just going a day without water is rough. You guys keep that in mind when you hear about these people in other countries having their water supply messed with. It's not any fun. Can't do dishes, can't do anything. By the way, I will point out, I do have plastic water lines in this boat, or whatever they're made out of. At least they say that they're like, food grade or whatever. And there's no moving parts in those, so I don't really worry about a part of the hose breaking off and ending up in the water supply. But, with the pumps, I do like to see, I do wonder about bits of the pump, because there's moving parts in there, breaking off and ending up in the water. But anyway, I figured I'd mention that quick. So if I had my, enough money, it'd be nice to have all copper pipes in the boat. But it's funny, because these tanks on this boat are actually made out of copper, these big old water tanks. And they just would never do anything like that anymore. Anyway, I'll probably, like so many other projects on this boat, I've just got half-done projects everywhere. Like, I'll throw some bilge paint down here one of these days. Yeah. These days I'm going to, I got all these boards that go from here all the way over. I'm gonna screw them all down after I get some polyurethane on them. So there's like a nice, well, they call it ceiling boards when you put a bunch of boards along the frames like that, which is the same kind of stuff that's going on here. There's ceiling boards that go right up the side, and there's gonna be a new generator mounted over there, and some other stuff going over here. New toilet system, vacuum flush, all freshly rebuilt, getting all reinstalled right there. And you can see there's a through hole down here for my old generator. And on the other side of that, it's just water. So if that thing breaks, it'll flood your boat. So it's nice that those old ones are made out of bronze. And you see that one's closed right now because there's nothing, no generator hooked up to it. But if you could imagine, if you drop like a hammer or something heavy down onto that thing, it'll just bounce right off. It probably won't hurt it. Whereas if it's plastic and you drop something heavy on it, it could break. And then you got one odd looking hole you're going to try to plug while you got water rushing in your boat. I guess you'd probably have to plug it from the outside somehow. Anyway, figured I'd mention that quick. Another thing just came to mind. I did use a screwdriver to tighten these clamps, which isn't the best way. So I gotta go back over them with a wrench to get them really tight. Because if they leak at all on the pressurized side, then the pump will just come on intermittently. And you don't want the pump coming on all the time. It should be off when you're not using your sinks and stuff. And I guess a quick note on this plunger pump, the Whaler bilge pump, the gulper they call it. These are pretty cool. There's just a piston in there that just goes up and down, and then there's a valve on either side, so it's just like the vacuum flush type of pump. What's good about them, I use them for, I guess dry pumps you'd say, to take out any little bit of water down in the bilge. And it's nice that they have a plunger style, because if something gets down there, it shouldn't clog the pump as fast as it would if there was a little spinning fan in the pump. And someone gave me the example of if you get like a dead mouse down there, and when you use mouse or rat poisoning, the animal gets hungry, or it gets thirsty, and so it wants to drink. And so it finds its way down into your bilge and drinks the water down in your bilge if there is any, and that could die down there. You don't want a dead rat down in your bilge, but if it does happen, and if it's small enough, or once the rat kind of breaks down a bit, this type of pump could actually pump the little tiny rat bits out of here. Note about wiring too. This is the newer type of wire that's black and white, where the black side is hot, whereas you still see a lot of the old red and black where the red one's hot. And way back in the day, the black one, they used to use red and black, but the black one was hot. So it's like every so many years they switch which polarity goes through which wire. Here's a better view of one of those bronze through holes, by the way. You can see how solid those things are. Yeah. I've got the wires twisted together so it'll work for the moment. You can see some water just filling up in that strainer. I've got all my valves open. And when I do get down here and redo these wire connectors, I'll use some shrink wrap and that dielectric grease, and I'll probably throw some shrink wrap over this data cable too, to make sure nothing ever gets down in there. And I bet if you do hook this up to the control box, it'd probably tell you if the pump is turning on at a regular interval for just a second, if there's like a leak where the pump is always turning on again to repressurize all your piping. So that would be kind of cool. It probably gives you like a little warning if it notices that there's a slight leak like that. But anyway, I'm gonna go flick this thing on, I guess. Let's See, I got a little work to do on these panels one of these days. So I used to have a 32-volt water system, and now it's 12-volt. So it's on the water maker switch, which is kind of funny because it's not a water maker, but I do now have a water maker, which I'm in the process of installing. I'll show you some of that one of these days. But anyway, here we go. This should sound like a goat. We can hear that in the background. And there's the water going. That's going to start filling up my old sauce pot. And I gotta get going to take care of that quick.